Hello, everyone. I'm Mr. Graveveil. I want to tell you a horror story. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get ready for a story you've never heard before. I shouldn't have taken that night class. It was supposed to be a simple gig 2 nights a week, filling in for a retired teacher at a community school just outside the city. The kind of job you accept without thinking twice. But the moment I pulled into the cracked parking lot, something didn't sit right. The building looked old. Not charming -old - neglected -old. The kind of place where the lights buzz just a second too long before turning on. It was raining, and the flickering lamps along the walkway cast long, twitching shadows. I tried to shake off the feeling. Just nerves, I thought. Inside, the hallway smelled like dust and cheap cleaning supplies. I was met by the director, a thin woman with sharp eyes who barely made eye contact. "Room 204, she said. "They're waiting." "They?" I asked, but she was already gone. The classroom was dimly lit, the kind where the corners always feel darker than they should. I set my bag down and looked over the empty desks. There was no class list, just a handwritten note, "Special session. Attendance not required." I assumed it was just some adult education formality. At exactly 7:05, the door creaked open. 4 students walked in. They didn't say a word. No greetings, no phones, no backpacks, just quietly took seats in the last row. Something about the way they watched me, completely still, eyes too wide. I can't explain it. I told myself I was being paranoid. But even now, I swear, none of them blinked. I tried to ignore how stiffly they sat, how not a single one of them had moved since they entered. I opened the textbook and began the lesson, stumbling through basic material just to fill the silence. No one took notes. No one asked questions. They just stared, like they were watching something they'd already seen before. The fluorescent lights above flickered twice. I looked at the clock. 7:19. I kept teaching. A few more minutes passed. I looked again. 7:19. That couldn't be right. I tapped the glass. Nothing. Pulled out my phone. The screen was black. Dead, even though I'd charged it an hour earlier. Then came the sound. Not loud just enough to cut through the stillness. A slow scraping, like something being dragged across linoleum in the hallway. I stopped speaking. "Did you hear that?" I asked instinctively. But none of them reacted, not even a blink. I walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was pitch black. No lights, no noise, just a thick, oppressive silence. I reached for the switch, but it did nothing. I turned back to the classroom, just for a second, and when I looked again, the door closed by itself. The bang echoed like a gunshot. I reached for the handle. Locked. I knocked. No answer. I pounded harder. Then I felt it. Breath on the back of my neck. But when I turned around, there was nothing there. Except a faint footprint, wet and bare, right where I had just been standing. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but something in me locked up. I backed away from the door, scanning the corridor for movement. Nothing. Just the low hum of silence and that single wet footprint already fading into the floor. I walked slowly, hugging the wall. Every door I passed was closed. Most of the classrooms were dark, but one had a faint light seeping through the bottom crack. I pushed it open. It looked like a storage room, piles of old textbooks, broken desks, dusty projectors. But in the back, a metal filing cabinet stood half open. I don't know why I looked inside. One folder stood out. It had a list of substitute teachers. My name was there, but it wasn't a recent entry. It was dated 2006. The photo paper clipped to the form looked like me. Same name, same face, but older lines I didn't have. Gray in my hair that wasn't there this morning. I felt dizzy. The air grew heavier. like the hallway itself was pressing against me. That's when I heard it, whispering, faint but unmistakable, like someone repeating my name behind a closed door. I turned, and there she was, one of the students, the girl in the middle row, standing just outside the classroom. Her face wrong, blurred, like a photo taken mid-motion. She pointed down the hall, said nothing, and vanished into the dark. I wanted to follow. I didn't want to be alone, but my feet wouldn't move, because now someone else was whispering my name right behind me. I turned sharply, expecting someone there. No one, just the room, colder than before, the kind of cold that clings to your skin. I stumbled back into the hallway, no longer caring about staying quiet. I needed to get out. My phone still wouldn't turn on. Every door I tried was either locked or led to another dead-end room filled with dust and silence. I found a stairwell and climbed to the main office. It was eerily empty, like it had been abandoned mid-shift. Desks untouched, coffee cups still half full. The desktop computer hummed. I sat down and logged in with the substitute credentials they gave me earlier. Something about the interface felt outdated. I searched the class database. No listing for room 204. No students matching the names on the sign-in sheet, if there ever was one. But there was a section labeled Incident Reports. I clicked it. A single entry. Night class fire, October 1997. Details were sparse, but the words hit hard. Evening program canceled permanently after fatal incident in room 204. Cause unknown. Substitute teacher unaccounted for. Students presumed dead bodies never recovered. The screen flickered. Then a new file appeared. My name, same format, same photo aged. Status, pending. Behind me, the door creaked open. I turned slowly, breath shallow. All 4 students stood in the doorway, their faces pale, their eyes hollow, like glass marbles reflecting no light. They stepped forward in unison. I backed away, but there was nowhere left to go. Only the glowing monitor, now displaying one word, "Welcome back." I ran, not out of courage, out of instinct. Down the stairs, past classrooms that looked older than they should have, their windows covered in grime thick as tar. I reached the front doors. Chained from the inside, the locks weren't modern. They looked rusted, heavy, as if they'd been there for decades. I banged on the glass, screamed into the night. No one answered. The parking lot was empty. My car gone. I turned to smash a window, using a broken metal stool from the hallway. But when I caught my reflection, I froze. It wasn't me. Not fully. Older, thinner, eyes sunken. Same clothes, but worn, faded, like they'd been sitting untouched for years. I looked drained, like I had aged a decade in a night. Behind me, the hallway lights flickered, then shut off, one by one. I turned, and the 4 students were standing at the far end of the hall, perfectly still, smiling. I walked backward toward room 204, not sure why. My legs moved on their own, like returning to a seat I'd left too long ago. The classroom was waiting, the desks arranged neatly, and one empty chair at the front. I sat. The air felt heavier, colder, but familiar. The students filed in and took their places. The door shut and locked. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't remember the lights going out. But when I opened my eyes again, someone else was at the front of the class. And I was just another student watching, silent, waiting for the next lesson. It was 11:43 p.m. when I finally locked the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, hadn't in months. The house was too quiet, not peaceful, but hollow, like a forgotten room in a distant wing of some old estate. Since the divorce, that silence had become my only real companion. The TV was still on in the living room, low volume, flickering shadows across the hallway. I wasn't really watching, just letting it fill the space with something other than my thoughts. I went through the usual routine, checked the back door, kitchen window, garage door. Everything was locked, same as always. Then I opened the app on my phone, the one that connects to the house cameras. Just habit. One tap showed me the front porch, the driveway, the backyard. Empty. Another swipe brought up the feed from the living room cam. Nothing but the blue glow of the TV on the couch I wasn't using. I stared at the screen for a second longer than usual, like I was waiting for something to move. But nothing did. Just the motionless comfort of an uninvaded home. I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, leaving the phone on the nightstand, screen still lit up from the app. It took me a while to fall asleep, and when I finally did, the faint sound of wind outside the window was the last thing I remembered hearing. Around 2:17 a.m., I woke up for no real reason. No noise, no dream, just a cold stillness that crawled under the blanket and pulled me out of sleep. I grabbed my phone, instinct, not necessity, and tapped the screen to check the time. The camera app was still open from earlier. I blinked, confused for a second. The living room feed was on, but it wasn't live. It said, playback, 3:08 a.m. I frowned. That was in the future. At first, I thought the app had glitched, maybe loaded some old footage by mistake. But the scene didn't look familiar. The light from the TV was off. I was in the frame, standing in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing a different hoodie than the one I went to bed in. I was pouring a glass of water, but I hadn't gotten up. I was still in bed. I fast-forwarded slightly. In the footage, I turned my head sharply toward the back door, like I heard something. The screen glitched slightly, static flickered, and then cut to the backyard cam. Nothing there. Just dark trees and a motion light flickering on and off, though no movement was visible. I paused the video and stared at my reflection in the black screen. This couldn't be right. Maybe the system updated and got the timestamps mixed up. Maybe it was just an error. Still, I got out of bed. I went to the kitchen. Same hoodie I'd worn all day. I poured myself a glass of water, just like in the video. And halfway through, I caught myself turning my head, almost involuntarily, toward the back door. I didn't hear anything, but I stood there for a long moment, holding my breath. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat on the couch with the lights off, phone in hand, watching every second of footage I could pull from the cameras. The timestamp from earlier, 3:08 a.m., came and went in real time. I was awake. I hadn't gone to the kitchen. And yet, in the recorded footage, I had. The app had more future clips now, not just one. They weren't labeled as such, but the times hadn't arrived yet. I watched, horrified, as new scenes loaded in one by one. In one, I was answering the door, hesitant, confused, at 4:46 a.m. In another, I was running through the backyard in the dark, barefoot, breathing heavily. A final one showed me in the hallway, backing into the wall, whispering something I couldn't make out. My eyes were wide, terrified. A shadow passed behind me. I paused it, rewound it, watched it again. The app wasn't glitching. It was showing me things that hadn't happened yet, things that somehow it knew were going to happen. I shut off the feed, heart racing. I turned on every light in the house, double-checked all the locks again, curtains drawn. I thought about calling someone, but what would I say? My security system is predicting my future? No one would believe that. I barely believed it, so I did what I could. I moved furniture in front of the doors. I grabbed the kitchen knife and kept it within arm's reach. I sat with my back against the wall where I could see the whole room, and the front door. And every few minutes, I checked the app again. Each time, a new clip was waiting, each one darker than the last. At 4:31 a.m., something in me snapped. I had to know if what I was seeing was real, or if my mind was breaking. I reopened the app and tapped the newest clip. This one was different. No label, no timestamp, just live. Except it wasn't the real-time feed. It showed me, sitting exactly where I was, on the floor, knife in hand, knees pulled to my chest. The same hoodie, same blanket wrapped around my legs, my breathing uneven. It was me right now, but then I moved, in the footage. Not the real me, the me on the screen. I turned toward the hallway, as if hearing something. A faint sound followed, creaking floorboards, the kind that old wood makes under weight. The figure on the screen stood up slowly. She looked terrified. And then I heard it too, the real sound behind me, creaking, soft but undeniable, from the hallway. I stared at the phone, frozen. The version of me on the screen was backing away, toward the kitchen. Something was coming down the hall, just out of frame. I turned my head, barely breathing. Nothing visible, but the sound was there, steady, slow. Another clip popped up in the app without me touching anything. Just a thumbnail, a close-up of my own face, eyes wide, staring straight into the camera. And behind me, a shadow, unmistakably human. I spun around, heart in my throat. Empty hallway. I didn't know what was worse, seeing what was coming, or not knowing when it would become real. And the worst part? The screen was still playing the footage. But now, the figure on it wasn't moving anymore. She was just staring at something I couldn't see. Mouth slightly open, exactly like mine. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't stop watching. The footage kept changing, each clip feeding me a version of the next few minutes. Some showed me hiding, others showed me running. One showed me lying still on the kitchen floor, eyes open, unmoving. Every possibility looked like a warning. I stared at the app's home screen. One final clip had appeared. It was marked only with today's date. No time, no preview. Just a black thumbnail. I hesitated. My finger hovered over it. I didn't want to see, but I needed to know. I tapped it. It opened on the living room feed. The view was tilted, as if the camera had been knocked sideways. The room was dim. I was in it, barely visible. On the couch, still. A faint noise played in the background, a rhythmic tapping. Not from the screen, from my window. I turned slowly, real life. My life. The tapping was real. 3 slow knocks on the glass behind me. I froze. The phone slipped slightly in my grip, screen smudging with sweat. I didn't look at the window. Couldn't. I watched the footage instead. In it, I finally stood up, walked toward the front door. I opened it. That was the last frame. Static after that. I stood up, shaking, my real body, not the version in the footage. I moved toward the door, just like in the clip, then stopped myself. I backed away. The phone vibrated. A new notification. Motion detected hallway cam. I didn't check it. I turned off the phone, sat on the floor, and waited. I don't know what's coming. Only that it's already been seen. And somehow, that's worse than anything else. It started with the kind of silence that doesn't soothe, the type that amplifies every small sound until even your own breath feels intrusive. I hadn't been sleeping much since the divorce. The house felt larger than it used to, emptier too. I moved here for the quiet, a small suburban street, well-kept lawns, neighbors who minded their business. The kind of place where nothing happens. It was just past 2 a.m. I had made tea I wouldn't drink, scrolled endlessly on a dim phone screen, tried and failed to will myself into sleep. I stood by the window, looking into the darkness without thinking. That's when I noticed the house next door again, the one that had been empty since spring. The previous owners moved suddenly. Some story about a job relocation, I think. Since then, it had sat there untouched. No lights, no movement. Just a cold, sleeping structure with drawn curtains and a fading "for sale" sign stuck in the lawn like a forgotten promise. I watched it for longer than I meant to, almost hypnotized by its stillness. The porch light hadn't worked in months, and the windows were black as obsidian. My own reflection hovered faintly in the glass. Nothing happened. No one appeared. But for some reason, I stayed there a while longer, watching a house where no one lived, listening to a silence I couldn't shake off. I told myself I just needed sleep, that it was all in my head. But part of me already knew something had changed. The next night felt colder, not by temperature, but by atmosphere, as if something in the air had shifted, just slightly enough to notice. It was 3:12 a.m. when I got up again. Same ritual, glass of water I wouldn't finish, meaningless scroll through old texts, eyes heavy but restless. Without thinking, I ended up at the window. That's when I saw it. A light, faint and yellow, flickering inside the second floor of the house next door. I squinted. It wasn't a street lamp reflection or a car passing by. It was coming from inside, from one of the upstairs rooms that had been dark for months. I stood there, frozen. Then the light went off. 2 seconds later, another one came on. Downstairs this time, then the hallway. No shadows, no movement. Just lights turning on and off, as if someone was walking through, one room at a time. But no one lived there. I grabbed my phone, aimed it at the house, tried to film, but the screen stayed black. Nothing recorded. No light visible in the footage, even as I watched it with my own eyes. A minute passed. The lights stopped. Darkness returned to every window. I thought about calling the police, reporting something, anything. But what would I say? That I saw a house turn its own lights on? Instead, I closed the curtain, sat down, listened. No footsteps, no cars. Just that awful silence again, but thicker now, like it was pressing against the walls. Something had been inside that house. Something that didn't want to be seen. Or worse, something that wanted to be watched. After that night, I started watching the house more often. Not obsessively, or at least that's what I told myself. Just enough to feel prepared. Each night brought something new. Sometimes the lights would flicker in different sequences. Sometimes nothing happened at all. And sometimes there were shadows. It started subtly. A faint shift behind the curtain. A shape crossing the frame of a lit window, too quick to define. Once, I thought I saw someone standing just beyond the edge of the glass, not moving, not looking around, just standing. Then it got bolder. One night, the bedroom light came on and stayed on. I waited, watching. Nothing moved for several minutes. Then, from the corner of the window, a silhouette passed. Tall, slow, deliberate. It stopped in the center of the room and turned toward me. I couldn't see a face, just a darker shadow against the light, unmistakably human-shaped. It didn't move again, just stood there, facing the window, facing me. I backed away from my own window slowly, heart pounding. My legs felt hollow, but even a few steps back, I couldn't break eye contact or whatever passed for it. Then the light went out. Total darkness returned. I stayed away from the window the rest of the night. But even with every curtain drawn, I felt exposed. Like I was being studied, measured, remembered. That house had been empty for nearly 6 months, and now it was watching me back. I tried to stop looking. For a few nights, I kept the blinds shut tight, left the hallway light on, even started sleeping on the couch to avoid that particular angle. But it didn't help. If anything, it made the tension worse, like holding your breath too long. Then came the storm. Heavy rain, wind scraping against the siding, branches tapping at windows like they wanted in. Around 3:30 a.m., I woke to a loud thud from outside. Maybe a garbage bin had tipped over. I wasn't sure. Out of instinct, I glanced toward the front of the house and saw it. The door to the house next door was open. Not wide, just slightly ajar. A soft amber light glowed behind it, casting a long, wet reflection across the porch. The rain poured sideways, but the figure standing in the doorway didn't flinch. It was the same silhouette I'd seen before. This time, it was facing my house, not moving, not blinking, just standing there, as if waiting for something. I stayed still, barely breathing. Then the light behind it flickered, once, twice, and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. I ran to check that my doors were locked. I turned every light on in the house. My hands shook, not from the cold, but from the feeling that whatever I'd been watching had started watching me with purpose. I calmed myself in the kitchen, breathing through my teeth, gripping the counter. Then I noticed something. My front door was no longer fully closed, just like the one across the street had been. The next morning, I bought a set of cameras. Motion activated, night vision, cloud backup. If I was losing my mind, I needed proof of it. If I wasn't, I needed to know what was real. I set them up facing the street, the side yards, my doors, even one pointing directly at the house next door. And I waited. Nothing happened for 2 nights. No lights, no shadows, no door left ajar. Just wind and rain and the low hum of electronics tracking stillness. On the 3rd night, I reviewed the footage, every angle, every clip, and found something I can't explain. It was a file saved in the early hours, around 2:43 a.m. The title was odd, a series of numbers I didn't recognize. I opened it. It showed me, crossing my own yard, walking toward the house next door, wearing the same hoodie I'd fallen asleep in. The camera captured me stepping onto the porch, reaching for the door, and walking in, calmly, as if I'd done it 100 times before. But I have no memory of this. The door was still locked from the inside that morning, and yet the video was real. Time-stamped, stored. I replayed it again and again, trying to catch a glitch, a trick. Nothing. Just me, disappearing into the house that shouldn't be lived in. I haven't slept since. I unplugged the cameras yesterday. They started recording things that hadn't happened yet, or maybe things I hadn't done yet. I don't look out the window anymore, because I know what I'll see. And tonight, as I sit here writing this, I hear footsteps in the hallway, inside my house. I'm the only one here. At least I was. If you've ever gone through something similar, or know someone who has, leave a comment below. Sometimes just telling it is already a way to protect yourself. And if this video made you think twice before letting your guard down, then it was already worth it. Here, we don't tell stories to entertain. We tell them to warn. Because real fear doesn't jump scare you. It silences. It freezes. And if you want to keep hearing stories that might help keep you alive, subscribe. The next story could be yours.